Hi, I'm Jeff Schaefer, and today we're flying the Cessna 172. This is the Reality Expansion Pack by SimCoders. Now this plane is pretty good. I fly this in most of my videos, especially when I'm trying to teach something. And it's so good for training that I want to give one of these away. So you can use the link below this video if you're on YouTube, or if you're already on my blog. You should already be on the page that has the details for how to get this for free. I'm going to give one of them away on April 2nd. So the rules are simple. You're just going to go to the blog page that has this video on it, the blog page for the Cessna 172 Reality Expansion Pack review and giveaway, and you're going to enter your email address at the bottom or on the sidebar, and that's going to put you on my mailing list. Everyone on my mailing list has a chance to win this plane and any future planes that I may give away in future drawings without having to re-enter. So go check that out if you want to try this plane. But what I'm going to do here for a review is I'm going to do it a little differently than most people. There's plenty of good reviews of this plane out there. They're worth taking a look at. What I'm going to do is try to catch the things that the others have missed. So some of this will be a review of the default 172 features from Laminar Research, because the Reality Expansion Pack builds upon that. So I'm not going to spend time going through the walk around. There's a couple videos of people doing this. It's an excellent thing to do with the plane. I recommend watching those videos, and I recommend using this feature when you get the plane. But because that's already out there, I'm not going to get into it as much. A big thing that's important to me when looking for these planes to use in the simulator is system depth. That's kind of the reality I'm looking for, and the avionics are important. Which of these buttons work, and a lot of times that's kind of skimmed over. So let's start right here in the cockpit. The circuit breakers, just like almost every payware plane, they don't do anything, and that's pretty standard. That's not a surprise. I've only ever seen one plane that has that. That's the Dreamfoil Bell 407, which is a pretty good helicopter. They have this glove box, and you can put this bobblehead up here, which is kind of funny. And this might be from Laminar Research, because I'm pretty sure that's Austin Meyer, the creator of X-Plane. So I don't know if that's on the default or from the Reality Expansion Pack, but it is kind of a funny little feature there. So that comes out of the glove box. Your doors open, your windows do not open, and your baggage compartment does not open, as far as I can tell. I'm going to check it out again. But yeah, there's no real clickable setup out here. That's fine. Let's get the battery on here, and it was already on, so I'm hoping this is part of the reality. So with the battery on, it's probably dead. So we go to the maintenance sheet. Yep, the battery was left on, and that can happen sometimes, especially because the Reality Expansion Pack carries over your switches from before. So if you park somewhere and you leave the switches a certain way, when you get back they'll be the same way, and sometimes it creates this sort of situation where I may have just quit the simulator in the middle of flying because I was done. But that's fine. So we're going to just hit recharge, and we're back on track. Full battery, ready to go. And this is all good stuff they have in here. You can preheat if it's cold out. The cylinders will degrade over time. You can change the type of oil to use. So the battery's on. You can see the annunciators work, and I have the textures turned down pretty far. That's why some of this stuff is very grainy. It looks a little better with higher texture. The lights down here, the labels, again, they look a lot better. But all these things work. You got the fuel pump. That's probably going to flood the engine. I can't read them right now, but there's a landing light, a taxi light, a beacon, nav, strobe, and this one here should be pitot heat. And the cover's off. You got to make sure of that during the walk around. The other thing that's cool is the engine physics. You can easily flood the engine. It's actually easier to flood the engine in this than in a real 172. You can also get vapor lock in your engine. So they will tell you about those things. So right now we're going to flood the engine. Mixture full rich, fuel pump on, and there's little tips that come up here. Let me make sure I have them turned on. Show tips, show failure messages. There they are. that engine 1 is flooded by fuel, set mixture to full lean, max throttle, and crank the engine. And I've done this before. I think I did this in a video. It's a little bit of a three-handed operation because you need to operate the key, the throttle, and the mixture at the same time, which is difficult in the real plane, but it's just about as hard here. So I'm going to use Control 1 on my keyboard to start the engine, and then the mixture with my mouse, and then I have a throttle on my joystick I can move here. So here we go. Nope, let go too soon. Let's try it again. Oh. You can see there my brakes weren't set. So we went launching across the ramp. Again, that's a setting where they're storing that, and you know, I foolishly didn't check it. I just assumed in X-Plane you always start and the parking brake is on, but not this time. So be careful of that, so you don't embarrass yourself like I just did. Let's come over here. You know, in my reviews, I like to check every single button. So these lighting, or actually that's usually the air vents. These don't pull out. Air vents don't really matter, but it's nice for them to pull out. This is your night lighting, and we're going to look at that in a moment. Alternate static is here. That's on, off. Fuel shutoff is there. If I pull that, it'll shut off the fuel. We have an ADF over here. I don't know of a nearby frequency of an NDB, but there's an NDB there, so 282. So we would have made it to one. Just gone a little farther. And that actually does not appear to be receiving, although it is 58 miles away. So for now, let's assume this works, and we'll be airborne in a little bit. We can maybe try it out some more and see if it really happens. Moving over here, you have your COM 1, COM 2, NAV 1, NAV 2. There's your VOR 1, VOR 2. You've got your DG here. This will precess, so if you park the plane and then move the plane, it will, you know, with the plane off, this will, since the driver's not spinning, this will stay put, but the compass, of course, will always move, so then they won't match anymore. This little button here to switch to GPS mode works. You've got your clock here, which is pretty standard in X-Plane. I doubt SimCoders had anything to do with this, but you know, you can start the little timer and stop the timer, and a lot of times you reset in the middle there between the buttons. You notice here I have the RPM at 1,000, which is a habit in a real plane, but in X-Plane a lot of times you'll just roll it down to idle. You'll see this will complain about that. It'll say the spark plugs are fouling. If you leave it at idle long enough, it'll bring a little message up here telling you the spark plugs are fouling. Right now, of course, it's not doing it just because I said it would do it, and that's how it goes. We'll leave that for just a minute. Let's take a look at the night lighting. So I'm just going to roll us down to nighttime. There you go, the spark plugs are fouling. So we're going to bring that up back up to 1,000. Message goes away. It also wants you to lean the mixture when you're taxiing, so that can help with that as well. Alright, we're in here at night, and we've got a couple different controls. This is your electronic screens. This is your steam gauges, as they're called. You know, so your primary instruments are on this outer knob, to the outer and the inner. And that's just like the real plane. There's an outer and an inner. They control different things. This one here is the pedestal, it looks like. So if you look down here, see the pedestal light up? And then there's the main like floodlight on the panel. And usually you want to fly with that pretty low. Sometimes it's 0. I usually like to go down to the bottom and then just up a drop. The yokes can be turned on and off, which is nice. You know, it's nice to see them moving. I especially like that when I'm doing like a training video, you know, because you can see what the yoke is actually doing. But when you're flying and you want to kind of get at your switches and everything, it's nice to be able to move that out of the way. There's not too many buttons in here. The audio panel is one more thing I wanted to focus on. So let's just start from the bottom. We'll get to that. It has the autopilot all these features work. This is really standard X-Plane. They really like this S-Tech. That guy works just fine. You've got your transponder here, and that works like a transponder, so that's not an issue there. Standby, altitude, on, off. You've got a test mode, and then some of these have a clock, but this one that's removed, so you can't get a little stopwatch on there. But you know, you have it over here, so it's not a big deal. Moving up to the audio panel. So this always kind of bothers me when they do this. You can't, in a real audio panel like this, and you can see this is meant to be generic. It doesn't have like the label. You know, this is a Garmin 530. You know, this is see the 530. This is a 430. This doesn't have any kind of a number indicating it's based off something real. It's very similar to a real audio panel, but you can see COM1 receive and COM2 receive, but there's no microphone. There's no transmit button. So normally you would be able to click COM1 transmit, and COM1 receive would be lit up. You know, when you're transmitting on a frequency, you have to be receiving on it. If you clicked COM2 transmit, this would light up to transmit, and this would light up to receive, and this would extinguish unless you had previously clicked on it by itself for receiving, because you can listen to both. And so they sort of simulate it this way, but like in this case where I want to listen to both and transmit on one, right now, looking at the audio panel, I do not know which one I'm transmitting on. So you'd have to actually turn that off. Now I know I'm transmitting on two. It's not a huge deal. Usually when you're listening to both, you're not transmitting. You might just be on flight following and you're getting the ATIS. So you know you're talking on COM1. You know you're over here just on one, and you just listen to the ATIS and then you turn it off and you're fine. But it is nice to know what's going on. I'd rather have it work the right way, and a lot of planes in X-Plane do have it working the right way, where you have the full audio panel and you can transmit and receive and know exactly which is which. You can listen to your nav, ADF, all that stuff. Get your Morse code off the nav. So those features work, but again, all these buttons down here are just grayed out. They don't do anything. The co-pilot volume doesn't do anything, and there's really nothing it could do. The pilot volume, this does work. I don't have anything for you to listen to right now, but it's not changing the volume of the sim, which some volume buttons do. So in a moment we'll turn on Pilot Edge and maybe see if it changes the volume of the controllers. So in order to do that, I'm going to get us set up back with real time and real weather, and we'll pick it up from there.
4,700.
Alright, we're back here and I'm listening to the ATIS. We're at Bakersfield.
2.2.
And you can see this knob doesn't do anything.
3031.
And that's fine. I don't mind knobs to turn, but don't really affect anything, especially something like that where it kind of doesn't make sense in the sim.
Initial contact, you have golf.
So that's about it for the buttons. They pretty much all work. The audio panels is lacking. There's a couple things missing, but you know, for the most part, it has all the things a 172 would have. So we're going to take it for a quick flight. I'm going to get us airborne, and then we'll resume there, and I'll show you some of the features with the sound and the realism and all that. So right now we're taxiing out.
Alpha 4.
And one thing I did notice that was pretty interesting was that the volume does affect pilot edge.
21056 is inbound.
So you can hear all these guys talking.
About 10 miles.
You can hear it's much quieter now. So that's pretty nice. That's a nice feature.
Who was calling southwest?
Southwest 21056, 5 miles southwest of the airport, about for landing.
Alright, let's get this in the air and we'll pick it up. Okay, we're back. We're just to the west of Bakersfield here, a little bit to the northwest, and we're going to do a little bit of maneuvering. So one thing to look at with this plane is the wind sounds. They've really worked hard on the wind sound. So you'll notice if I roll to the side,
Number 21056, taxi to parking via Alpha.
and I'm going to turn them down just a little bit. You pull back on the yoke.
Taxi to parking via Alpha.
A little too hard there, but you can hear the wind sound changing. And this is similar to a real 172, because normally the wind is slipping around the cockpit, over the wings and everything straight on, and it's it has less drag that way, but when you're pitching up, when you're at a high angle of attack, there's a lot more drag. There's a lot more wind hitting the wings and being forced down. There's a lot more wind hitting the bottom of the plane and being forced down. And all that wind being thrown around creates a lot more sound. So let's get into a forward slip. I'm going full left rudder, reducing power, letting the nose down. We have our flaps fully retracted right now. And you can hear that extra wind.
14726.
We're going to roll out of it.
Take off at now departure is approved.
And you can hear the wind sound change. I don't know how easy it is to hear through the video, but it's very apparent when you're in the real plane, and it just adds that extra layer of realism. The other thing I like is the torque of the engine is simulated pretty well, so I'm going to trim this up for this slower speed we're at now. Right about there. And I'm going to pull the power to idle. You'll see the nose push to the side a little bit. So that's the torque of the engine. Now I'm going to go straight to full power. I'm going to firewall it and watch the nose. See how it gets pushed back to the left?
461 Papa Echo, enter the right base.
So that's that left turning tendency of the engine.
And Las Vegas altimeter 312.
And you know, that's important, because in a real 172, that's something to think about. You know, if you're climbing, you're at a slow speed, you're at a high angle of attack, that's a significant factor. You see right here, see the ball going to the right? So you need some right rudder to correct for that left turning tendency. And that's why this is such a great trainer, because it's simulating these simple things that are important to learn for any pilot, but especially when you're starting out and trying to build these habits.
516 Delta Mike second.
So let's take a look at the stall behavior. I'm going to full flaps. This is a power off or approach to landing stall. Bring it back. Power to idle. And see how I had the power halfway and I kind of eased into that stall? This is common in a real Cessna 172 or 152 where you kind of can't create a full brake stall when you ease into it.
1056, that's Passion Cat 5, congratulations.
2056,
So we're picking up a little more speed. We're going to pitch up some more. And we're going to chop the power and try to keep it there.
Departure with information hotel.
And you'll see we will get a full brake this time. That's about all it is in a 152. Full power, release some back pressure, get the nose back above the horizon just a little bit, and the flaps are coming out. There you go, we're at 10 degrees of flaps right now.
Can I have a 26?
And I like to wait to take the last notch of flaps out. There's no rush on that with that 10 degrees of flaps. So we're all the way up at VY now. It's a great time. The last notch of flaps is out. Very simple stall there. The behavior is consistent with a real 172. They've done a pretty good job with this thing. I'm pretty happy with it. Let's try out a little bit of slow flight here. Let's see how slow we can fly without losing altitude. So I'm at 2,000 feet. We're going to put those flaps back in. Alright, flaps are full. Adding power. And you hear that stall horn. It used to be common to practice stalls listening to the stall horn the whole time. But that's been sort of retired. It's considered a little more dangerous. And it's not a good habit to fly around listening to the stall horn. It's not how you would really do slow flight. If you were slowing down, say in the pattern for another plane, or ATC asked you to slow down for separation, you wouldn't fly around with the stall horn on. You would fly at 50 or 60 knots. So right now I'm doing it with the stall horn on. This is sort of the old way, right? Trying to maintain altitude, manage power, and keep that stall horn on. A little bit of up and down pitch there, and that's just me correcting and sometimes overcorrecting. But real slow flight would be more like this. Add some power. Get into that green arc a little bit. There we go. There's 55 knots. It's not that much faster, but it's a lot safer, and that's why that's sort of the new standard, to do slow flight above stall speed, and if you hear the stall horn, you are not doing slow flight anymore. If you did that on your check ride, that would be considered a fail or just something you need to try again. So, you know, it's a good plane. X-Plane's known for having good flight dynamics, so it's already 90% there, but this brings you another 9% up to 99% realistic, and you know, it's very good, so I recommend it. Once again, I'm going to be giving this away in the month of, it's going to be April 2nd is the drawing, so just try to get in the month of March. The simplest way to get in, if you're watching this on YouTube, click the link at the bottom. If you're watching this on my blog at schaeferflight.com, you're already on the right page. Just once you get to that page, you go to the bottom or to the sidebar, and where it says Schaefer Flight in your inbox, go ahead and punch your email address in there. That'll put you on the mailing list. Everyone on the mailing list is entered into this drawing and every future drawing for an airplane. So go ahead and jump in there, and maybe you'll get this thing for free, and you can try it out. It's normally 20 bucks on the xplane.org store. So if you don't want to do the drawing or you don't want to wait that long, you know, I would go there and get it. I don't know if it's available anywhere else, but that's where I got this one, and I'm pretty happy with it. So thanks for watching. Again, I'm Jeff Schaefer, and you can subscribe here on YouTube, or you know, go to my blog, get on the mailing list, and you'll see these things as they come out. Thanks a lot. Bye.